think you want me to say, go Ducks. Number 3 Oregon playing number 4 LSU tonight, so he missed his own service. You all know. I've had many weeks to think about what I wanted to say about Dad. And, you know, when a man lives to be 89 years old, there's a lot of life. Some of you may have read the article in the Examiner this week about the patriarch of our family coming from Germany to Northern California. Well, our family were railroaders, and my dad's father, Grandpa Herman, was a railroader and ended up in Klamath Falls following the rail as it was being built from San Francisco, and that's how we ended up in Klamath Falls. Dad was born on March 6, 1922 in Klamath Falls to Charles Herman Foster Sr. and Mabel Murphy, his mom. We're a quarter Irish and glad no more. Anyway, Dad was a very, very bright man. And I loved when he was a child, he was a bookworm. And he got backed over by a duck truck walking down the sidewalk one day. His truck was, and he was reading his book, and he sort of broke his leg. And then, as things progressed, he and 6 other men came together in Klamath Falls, and they called themselves the Super 7. We later said they were the Magnificent 7, but these men became all very accomplished in their lives and stayed in touch to the end of their lives. And during those years, recently we received a wonderful testimonial from one of them named Richard Blome. And Dick was talking about Dad was a heck of a poker player and usually took everybody's money. And I thought, that's where I got it from. he would play cards with his buddies over at the house in Klamath Falls in high school. And I guess he was a pretty good pool player, too. And I guess that's where I got that from. So, he never mentioned either one to me, but he never argued with me about playing cards with my friends in high school at the house or anything. But he never mentioned to me that he played poker. Well, he became the editor of his high school newspaper, and that held him in good stead when he went into the service in World War II. He graduated valedictorian from KUHS over in Klamath in 1940. He got a full scholarship for undergraduate work at the University of Oregon, and he attended for 2 years, and then he went into the military. He tried to join the Navy, but he had a thing called iritis, and was also very nearsighted. I remember telling the Navy recruiter, said, come back with a CNI dog. Then he tried to join the combat division with the Army, but they said, nah. And they knew he was editor of his high school paper. So he was inducted as a clerk typist and sent to Greenland. Now, Greenland was relatively safe, although Denmark had fallen, and if Britain had fallen, they would have been woefully undermanned in Greenland. So the first, Dad's 21 years old, and the first thing they did was tell him to start a camp newspaper for all the GIs. There were about 2,500 GIs in different locations. So he started the first newspaper on the islands of Greenland. That went from a weekly soon to a daily. And then, I don't know, the powers that be allowed him to start radio broadcasting at night. In the evenings, he started doing radio broadcasts. And I found just recently in his things the original transcript of the radio broadcast that he did the day they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. It had happened Greenland time about noon, and Dad, his transcript, which had to be edited at least, talks about the devastation of the bomb on the Japanese, etc. But then he went into talking about the future of atomic energy and the benefits of it to mankind. He was a philosopher and a thinker, and a wonderful man. He cherished his service years like so many other men. After all of his other civilian accomplishments, it was his military career that he most cherished in those few years that he was in his service. He was part of it. One time I asked him, I said, "Dad, did you ever see that movie Saving Private Ryan when it came out?" And he said, "Ernie, I never watched combat movies from World War II. They make me feel bad." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I was in relative safety while my friends were being wounded and killed in the European and Pacific theaters." And it made me think that that war, as the Vietnam War in my generation, affected everybody, in or out of the service, whether they were in combat or not. It affected everybody. And Dad carried with pride his service years all the rest of his life. He came out of the service and went back to the University of Oregon. He married my mother in 1946 on September 8th. And I might add, we're having their interment at Willamette National Cemetery this coming Thursday on September 8th, which would have been or is their 65th wedding anniversary, which is pretty cool. In 1949, they moved to Lakeview, and Dad went to work for Forrest Cooper. Some of you may remember he was a prominent attorney in town, and a member. He was president of the National 2020 Club, etc. Dad worked for him for 3 or 4 years, and in 1953, the then Judge Combs passed away. He had about a year and a half left to his term, and Dad was appointed as circuit judge for Lakeview to fulfill that vacancy at 31 years old. And that set a record that he was the youngest judge in the history of the state of Oregon, circuit judge. And it still may hold to this day for all I know. And then he was reelected for 5 6-year terms, retired in 1984, had 31 years under his belt. So he had a wonderful career. But as they moved to Lakeview, my brother David was born in 1950. I came along 10 and a half months later. Since we're 6 weeks, we're the same age every year for 6 weeks. And my lovely sister Julie was born 4 years after me. So Mom and Dad loved Lakeview, and Dad just cherished this town. He wouldn't have lived anywhere else. During the course of his life in Lakeview, he was president of the Little League for 10 years. He was a lifetime member of the Lions Club, and I see a number of you here. I found a 60-year pin for the Lions Club, and I thought, man, that's a long time. And this is the weekend. If you were alive, you'd be sitting out there serving you pancakes. Labor Day weekend. He was honored as senior first citizen by the Chamber of Commerce in 1962, and in 1964 as Father of the Year by the Lake County Cowbells. Yeah, it was nice. As time progressed and finally Dad retired, I want to say that Dad was not just a circuit judge in this town, he was also the juvenile judge. And that was not an easy thing for him, because as a young couple, they would be friends, and then the kid might get in trouble, and then that friendship could be tested pretty severely. It's not easy being a judge in a small town, but he did his job well, and I have found letters, personal letters, from then Governor Tom McCall, thanking him for sitting on the governor's advisory board for juvenile matters, and many other things that my father really didn't share with me personally until I found these letters. He was a well-respected man, not only in this community in that regard, but in the judicial circles of the state and even nationally. I remember he wrote Richard Nixon and told him to quit doing this. And Richard wrote, President Nixon wrote back, Dad even smudged his signature and made sure it was real, thanking him for his support back in Southeast Asia, etc. Amazing times. One time, Howard K. Smith, who was the anchor for ABC deadline, he said, and I will correct it as soon as it becomes topical again. And we watched it on national TV within that week, and he corrected himself based on my dad's input. So, you know, his touch was far and wide. His, you know, his services for both of us, for both Dad and Mom, really. I mean, it's Dad's service, but Mom's been waiting down at the house for him for 7 years. Their interment will be in Willamette National Cemetery, which has always been Dad's wish. The Army Honor Guard will perform the ceremony. It's at 11 o'clock in Portland at the Willamette National Cemetery. Those of you, or if you know others that plan on attending that, you should be at the administration building at the cemetery by 10:30. And then they will shuttle us to the shelter where their burial will take place. I want to talk a little bit about their extended life together. When they retired in 84, 85, Mom and Dad, some people buy vacation homes or whatever they do. Mom and Dad love to travel. And at first, we'd have itineraries to keep track of. But after a while, they were all over the world. And they would go to elder hospitals, and they just had a beautiful retirement together until Mom passed away. I want to say that I would thought to myself, how do I end this eulogy for Dad? You know, and I just want to say that my father was not a perfect man. He was not an easy man at times, not for his children either. We had my father and I had a number of not estranged years, but difficult years in our adulthood. And then after Mom died, I got older, he got mellower, and he called me every day. And then it was like an old gent. He died very peacefully, but I came home to spend my birthday and his together. I'm a day older than him. I was born on March 5th. He was born on March 6th. And I knew he was just fading away. And like they said about old generals, they never died. They just fade away. Dad faded away and passed away very peacefully down at J&J Foster Home, adult foster home. Dad was fond of saying, I'm home fostering the foster home. And he was perfectly content to be there. I thank you for Janice and her family for taking such good care of Dad. And Vivian Lees, thank you too for being such a good friend of my father. And all of you that, you know, even though he was in a little room the last years of his life and couldn't leave, he had connections. People, you know, he'd call, sometimes irritatingly so.